I've got a wide monitor, but it helps to leave it wide for this purpose.
Are you familiar with the Parity wallet?
Yes, I haven't spent a lot of time on its UI and so forth. What are you bringing up?
Well, because it's like I find it's sort of like a dashboard. I mean, I've got all a directory of all my contracts and people uh, and DApps.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think when you have a big team, you can get a lot of features and like exchange integration and trading and private messaging is a neat feature. And so there's all kinds of things you can do once you have a wallet that make it powerful. So that's really cool. So I had this before with account. I call it like account management or private key pair management. And there's different ways, whether it's HD account or adding a private key that the user types in. But you notice that both screens change. So I did some work recently on just making sure that the event handling was correct. That this was a reactive UI, and that it would handle events. So this took me a little while to get. So in other screens, it's important to be able to choose which account or key pair you're working with. So if I change this to HD2 here, you'll see on the right it will change as well, and then select HD2. So that's the most recent thing I've done. So that was kind of a fun piece. Piece of
Yeah,
code.
so this is cool, Ed. So you've got two browser windows here, and then you opened up your app in both of them. Um, so I see that they're staying in sync, right? So my question is like, if I were to use this wallet as an end user, like to send somebody Rev, is the whole thing running in the browser? I know there's that Envoy proxy somewhere. Where would that, like, what's your vision for if this were in production, like on testnet or something? Where does that proxy run? Does every wallet user run that, or it runs once in one place that all the wallet users contact? Or
Yeah, somewhere in between, so that this isn't implemented yet, but that the user would have an ability to select the Envoy proxy they want to interact with. It could be
cool.
It could be local, or it could be through a DNS, a round robin DNS, where it selects which Envoy proxy at random, or it could be a trusted Envoy proxy. So during testnet, it would probably be just one that would be hosted on AWS. But even that Envoy proxy behind it can be a routing mechanism in it for availability, that behind the Envoy proxy, it could go to any number of R nodes.
Yeah,
I don't know if that would.
cool.
I don't know if that would work perfectly because of the interaction model, because it's asynchronous, and that particular R node is going to be the one that responds. So I don't think that round robin approach would actually work, or maybe it handles. Maybe there's the notion of a session. I don't know. There's some things to work through in that.
Yeah.
Where
What I was wondering was, like, in the demo where you do something on the left and the right updates, like that's great, right? When I have two different windows open, I want them to stay in sync first. Maybe a more direct way to ask what I was wondering is, like, let's say this left window is your account and you're signed in, and then this right window is me and I'm doing something different. What how do your browser windows know that this is like the same session or same account, or however the right way to phrase that is, that
Right.
they're both Ed?
So I may or may not synchronize the account, but all of this is in local storage. In what I just demoed, there's no server interaction. So if I open up for that left window, the application local storage. So it's all it's all within here. Let's just zoom in. You know, so there's some account information. This selected address, you see this 0x884. If I change that, that will change. So 0x682. So it's all in local storage. The part of local storage is encrypted and part of it's not. So right, and this is, you know, the security hardening is another area that needs work. But you see there's a piece of it that's you know, completely visible to the app, and then there's let's see, then there's a local vault as well that's encrypted, and this uses the same library that, well, actually, I'm not sure which library this uses offhand. I was thinking it uses the same library as one of the Ethereum JS utilities, but it has the encrypted private keys, or the HD seed inside this vault. And so there's, you know, there's also ways of backing this up. So if I
so that's gonna, so backup like dumps this local storage to a file or something.
Exactly.
How is the local storage shared between the windows?
Well, it's because it's the same domain. The local storage is the same, and you know, so it's automatically updated. It's automatically shared between two windows on the same app, just like you would on two web pages. It's the same local storage, but it's the eventing and the event handling that makes it sync. Let's see, go back to Notepad, I guess. So here's probably a better way to show what this looks like in the data structure. So there's this key ring and, you know, a set of encrypted vault data. There's you know, the set of accounts, and for the different addresses, and there can be a friendly name and a friendly description and so forth per account. It's a set of you know, UI preferences, like what language they want to choose. You know, this was built against originally against Infura API, but there would be equivalent things for our node. You know, what's the current network name? You know, is this what, like, is it testnet? Is it testnet 1? You know, whatever. What the current node that it's pointing at. In this case, it would be an Envoy node, but and then it has to know what the current shard is within that node, because rev in one shard is not the same as rev in another shard, or whatever the token is called. So it's got some work. There's some configuration work to do and implementation work to do around there. There would also be a built-in knowledge about what the available networks are. So maybe there's a set of well-known nodes, and again, these are all Envoy proxies, but right, they're just, think of them as one-to-one to a well-known node. So whether this is, let's say, rchaincooperative.rnode.net, or I'm just making these names up, would be maybe one trusted endpoint, but there could be a whole list of these that are trusted out of the box. And this is the way that you know, the standalone Bitcoin and Mist wallets work, is there's a set of IP addresses, and then it can discover additional ones. So there would be some, you know, at install time, or at when you run the URL that serves up the JavaScript, it would serve up this list of well-known nodes, and then whichever one you happen to be connected to. So anyway, a lot of that data model has been some of it is some of this data model that gets in local storage is settled. I'm good with it, and some of it, like this R node selection, still needs work. To answer your question, Joshy?
Josh, you had to run.
Oh,
Yeah, he has an appointment at 11.
okay.
So, yeah, well, that's pretty neat. I can appreciate all the work and effort over the years to get it to where it's at.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah, and I don't want to give up on it, but I want to get it across the finish line. But I don't know if I can do that alone.
Right.
So here's an example of talking through the Infura API. So these are on Ropsten test network. These balances.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's roughly where things are at.
Cool deal.
So if we have applications like ticketing or voting, I mean, would the wallet be involved in a voting app?
Well, yes, a wallet. So, every single transaction with blockchain, we call them every single deploy on our chain requires payment. So yes, there has to be a wallet. It doesn't have to be, this wallet. It could be all API with very little UI around it. But so in the Ethereum ecosystem, MetaMask is the most popular way, which is what RSign was designed to do. That RSign is sort of just the signer, and the rest of the UI around getting token balances and stuff could be in another web page. But I've also thought about taking this whole thing into a Chrome extension, and then it could be similar to MetaMask, that other wallets, other apps, other dApps that are browser based would call into this. And I think just the way that MetaMask today exposes some methods that the apps could call, such as select the account, get balance of a token, and sign this transaction. Hello, Mao. Yeah, so that's another direction this could go without much change in the UI, but it's just how it would have to create and expose some additional methods. So possible.
Yeah, that's would be the ideal, I think.
Yeah, I think also for accelerating the ecosystem, a MetaMask, whether it's factored as a fully functional wallet or just a signer and key management tool, that's a really important architecture for the ecosystem.
Yeah, and the fact that the limitations of MetaMask, because it's not a fully functional wallet, in the sense that parity or whatever.
Well,
it's getting better. I mean, I don't think you can give friendly names to accounts yet. Things like that to make it sort of
got it.
Not too usable. Adding the tokens was the most important thing, I think, in terms of making it primarily the thing I use rather than parity.
Yes. Does parity only deal with Ether?
No, it deals with
ERC20s or whatever.
ERC20s, and with because it supports contracts, you can it'll support any interface, right?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So someday, our chain will also have the equivalent of the ERC20 token and other tokens, other contracts for this, which would be great. And those could be extended into a wallet app. So yeah, I like the idea of either taking our sign into a full-fledged supported app, or a full-fledged wallet like this wallet I was demonstrating into a browser extension. I like both of those approaches.
Now, I guess what I was wondering or thinking about was demonstrating some arbitrary token that we can create on our chain today to demonstrate applications or use cases of the wallet, sort of in the demo or die, or now it's deploy or die strategy, where if you could demonstrate an application that used our node today.
Well, exactly, and certainly our song, I believe, intends to do that. So if our song is going to continue on its trajectory, it's going to have a wallet in it or behind it, so that the token incentives can flow. So I plan on watch. I actually have to look at the our song repository. I haven't in a while. I have some questions about what it's doing. So that's on my list to look at. But to me,
sorry.
Sorry, did you say Ned?
Yeah, I said you might want to talk with Ned and see if you can find a synergy there.
Yeah, I think the challenge I have is there's a risk of losing focus on the basic wallet if it extends to secondary tokens before it finishes the first one. So I'd really like to see this get finished just with revs. Oh, I can't hear you, Jim. You're on mute.
All right. Too bad Joshy dropped off. I was hoping to get some feedback on ideas for handling objects in the state of becoming on our chain.
I don't know what that means. Objects in the state of becoming. What does that mean?
Well, the object model. It's a sacrilege, for an object to change behavior. But in the real world, objects obtain behavior over time as things change. But basically, it's just that you have a model of objects, which essentially is a set of behaviors, and meta operations that allow you to change those behaviors.
Yeah,
So, and I guess there's an issue that I guess a discovery or whatever is should the state of an object be um, be embodied in the code or independent of the code?
Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, functional versus an object-oriented paradigm on the blockchain and so forth. I think I follow. Hey, Jim, Steve, I want to repeat some of this demo for Mao. Do you mind?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll share my screen again, and I'll actually probably back up a bit to give more of a complete demo, if you will. Let's see. Why am I having trouble finding? Oh, I see. It's off screen. Okay, should be able to see the screen now. And I'm going to restart.
Matt wants to know if he can capture it and show it to the Chinese community.
Yes, Mao, you can. And Jim is also recording this that he could provide a link later. So I'm going to sort of restart some things here. So just by way of introduction, this is a web wallet that I've been working on for some time. This is a placeholder name, Digin, D-I-G-N, and it currently has some integration with RChain and some integration with Ethereum Infura. I demoed this, an earlier version on this when it was called Rever Wallet on the RChain Community Hangout probably 2 months ago. So there's a recording of that as well. So it's evolved a little bit from that, but pretty similar. So in the setup screens, the user will be able to pick their language and region. There'll be some introductory text, including the typical. There's a user provides a password that's going to be used to encrypt the local data in their browser. And then they have a choice of how to set up their private keys. Whether it be a new random key that will be used in a hierarchical deterministic wallet, or they provide a private key, mnemonic, other things. Eventually, it'd be great, of course, if there were a hardware wallet integration as well, or a MetaMask type of integration with RSong. For this purpose, I'm going to use a mnemonic that I have demo data associated with on Ethereum. So you see kind of how that comes up, and then it will go either to the what I call account management screen, or perhaps the home screen. This is talking to the through Infura at the moment API. I'm going to restart this just so you can see the alternate path of which is typical of HD wallets of backing up. So if you created a new random key, you'd be prompted about educating how that mnemonic phrase works. You'd see this mnemonic phrase, market agent tied. You'd either back that up. Jim, I added this copy to clipboard at your request. and then you'd back it up, and you'd then mark it agent request, whatever. Now I have a cheat because I do this so many times per day. I want to just press the cheat button and confirm that backup. So we ended up at the same place. Actually, there's a bug in this. Apparently, there should be one HD account. So forgive me. I'm going to go through it one more time. A bit faster this time to get back where I was. Okay, and then once you have an HD account, you can add additional key pairs within that HD account and select them. You can when you're on the home screen, you can change which account you're on, and that changes throughout the app. There are basic send screen setup. The send is also responsive to the account selection, and just like other Ethereum wallets, you'd be able to send the Ether. Some of this is, or sorry, Rev in our case, and see the details of the fees, and it hits send. There would be a QR scanner. QR scanning using JavaScript is actually pretty unreliable and slow. So I'm not sure how and I tried this. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get a QR scanner via JavaScript that actually works. If we were using deploying on React Native, then we could invoke the more native camera scanning. But you see, what I'm just showing is sort of what's in place in terms of user experience. So here's the send screen. Here's the receive screen. You see receiving address 772. If I change it, it updates the QR code. And then you'd also be able to see the history of transactions at a given address. Here again, this is showing against the Infura API. We'd want to get the same thing running against our chain. And then there's a set of selections. Here's two different R nodes, essentially. There's an Envoy proxy in between these, and then there would also be a way to configure additional ones. There's light and dark themes. My light theme is that's actually not too bad. That was a little broken earlier. There'd be a set of localized capabilities. So part of the plumbing of this is put in. If I change it to Chinese, for example, you see this string up here changing, and the menus somewhat changing, somewhat broken. But the initial parts of that are put in. Backup application exports a JSON file of what's in the browser's local storage, which includes the encrypted HD phrase, and it's encrypted with the user's password they provided at the beginning of that experience, as well as some other customizations like the friendly name of a given account. You can reset the app, and then there's some, just details about what version of software this is working against and that kind of thing. So, and we were showing earlier this manage accounts. This recovery networks, the idea there is just a placeholder for future where we would use social key recovery or a way of splitting the user's key. Let's say you have this 12-word passphrase and you wanted to split it among several people. So there's a technique called Shamir secret sharing. I probably typed that incorrectly. Yeah, that's what I meant. So there's a way of taking a secret and splitting it among a similar of, n of m parties so that a subset of them would come back together and be able to recover a private key. So I was, or a secret phrase. So I was thinking of using that in the recovery network. Once you've set up your accounts, there's ways of adding additional HD, or you could also add private key or import or key store text.
Mao asks, do you wrap it in Electron for desktop or browser extensions?
Oh, that's a great question. Not currently. I'm aware of Electron as a way of getting it to desktop or mobile. Haven't done that work. There was earlier on, there was work done to integrate this to React Native and to use it in a web view on Android. But yeah, there's this, for this purpose, what I've optimized is the browser experience, because I think that would reach the most number of people easily, but it's not necessarily the most, well, let me just say that the deployment is easiest, but ideally, if I had to do this over again, might have chosen a mobile first strategy, which might reach more eyeballs ultimately. So, there does need to be a mobile wallet happen out there. This is using, on the code side, it's Scala.js and React JavaScript, but it could be evolved to use React Native, and then I believe it could fit, certainly in an Android ecosystem. I'm not sure how well it would fit into the iOS arena now. So yeah, in terms of next steps, that the path we're on is to, instead of talking to the Infura API, is to talk to RChain. And I did demo about a month and a half ago some functions that aren't working at this moment. I don't have it configured, but where I was talking with an R node, and so I demoed a screen that's similar to this, where this is a test screen of deploying a name, creating the block, listening for that name, and then also demonstrated insert arbitrary into RChain. So this was all working, and then the things below I didn't finish yet, as the development team was changing the contracts, and they're still in the midst of changing the contracts, how wallet check and transfer of revs will work, so that's not, I'm blocked at the moment of implementing that, but within a couple of weeks I should be unblocked for implementing that. So, and then once sort of it's done at a test level, then I can integrate it back in with those account balance, send, and receive screens. And one of the next steps also is to integrate with a crypto library. I just found out, this is here.
Mao's impressed. He said this exceeds his expectations.
Oh, thanks, Mao. I appreciate, Steve, you
yeah,
relaying that. So Mao, one of the challenges I was sharing with Steve and Jim and Josh, who was on earlier, is the challenges of continuing this and getting it across the finish line. Today, this is just me developing this, and there's a money challenge getting it done, and there's also a talent challenge getting this done in a timely fashion. So you and I could chat offline about potential ways of getting additional help to this. So yeah, getting the crypto library on is one of the next major steps for me.
Well, the demonstration was better the second time around, so I feel like really familiar with the wallet. So yeah.
Good. Well, it's nice.
He assumed we had already seen the demo. He was just showing us the latest development.
Yeah, if I had anticipated this, I would have shown the R-chain pieces working, but it would take me 15, 20 minutes to set that up. And again, it's basic interactions with deploying a simple contract. It's not a full wallet integration, but it does demonstrate how the Envoy proxy between the app and the R-node work. So the things on my list next are to integrate or to refresh my bits with the 0.8.4 node release, and to then make sure that's still all healthy, and to start looking at the crypto libraries that support this ED25519 curve.
Yeah, I saw your comments in Discord about the ED255. So do you gather that's a good thing, or is that throwing up obstacles for you?
Well, it's a road bump, but not a serious obstacle. There are JavaScript libraries out there. I did find a what's called a Scala.js facade around that JavaScript library, and I believe I can get through that. I'm not a cryptographer and expert in that area, and definitely need those kind of eyeballs ultimately on this code. Yeah, so I think I can get through that. It would have been better if the R-chain team had used this, I forget what it's called, what the browsers have is native crypto support, or I'm sorry, cryptography is what I mean in this sense. So that, but that signing curve that's available in the browsers natively is the, I forget what it's called, SECP something R1 is right. What's available. And that's different than the Ethereum Bitcoin curve. And it's different than what our chain has chosen, which is the ED25516. But it's just a speed bump. We'll get through it.
Yeah. I'm interested in, this is kind of just a general or a question of, Scala, the history of it. Where does anyone have any background on when Scala was created, and what was the initial purpose of it? There seems like Scala, is it a specialized application that's only used for certain type of applications? Any insight onto that? I'd be curious.
Well, it starts out with a functional paradigm, and the functional paradigm, it wasn't the first functional programming language, and I can't go too deep on this response. Maybe Jim can elaborate, but the functional paradigm includes the concept of a monad, where you have a pure function that doesn't change states, right? So it gets in data, runs the function, and generates the output. And so that function then can be relied on, that it's never going to change state by itself.
All right.
And that's a key concept in the whole functional paradigm. I don't know how long it's been around. I think it's the early 2000s. And there's a number of other functional languages, including Erlang and Haskell, and F# in the .NET stack.
Okay.
But it's so domains that are highly processing oriented, like image recognition, VR, and very ones that are very compute intensive, video compression, that where it's got a lot of function handling, but sort of in and out, then the functional paradigm makes more and more sense. But but it's also used in others. So anyway, I can't talk much more about Scala and the functional paradigm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a Wikipedia search on it. I'm just interested. You know, the dev team, the makeup is a lot of these Scala developers who are, you know, pretty high level. So I'm just, you know, it's just kind of fascinating to me that, you know, the Scala and, you know, what it can do. So what its
From
application
my
is.
perspective, the Java is a pretty lousy language.
Oh yeah,
Just about everywhere. I mean, you know,
yeah.
touted to support objects, but it doesn't really support pure objects. Um, Scala, on the other hand, uh, uh, in some ways it's simpler, but that's if you're doing Java type stuff.
Hmm.
The relational, the functional nature
Yeah.
is that, you know, yeah, an easy way to understand it is, you know, you don't want your software to have unintended side effects.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
a function is, in, you know, of immutable data that
Hmm.
can't change.
Okay.
Okay, uh, uh, can be safe with respect to these unintended side effects.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
and
that's
you can do
helpful.
things. You can do things. You know, it opens the door to uh, uh, parallelism and other things in a safer manner. But
Right.
even though
That's
it's
that's why it's
safe,
the choice,
yeah.
the language, the syntax preference for our chain because of that parallelism capability.
Well, um, Rolang uh, is mutable in the sense that when you know you send process on a channel, okay, it's mutating the channel, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but uh, it's conceptually functional.
Okay.
Is the way I would put it. In that the uh, it can be looked at from a functional perspective, so to speak. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to say that.
Yeah. It's talking about software programs is even more challenging than using them and coding in them. So, but you, Jim, you do pretty well in Scala. So what's your level of comfort with programming in Scala?
Um, I haven't done much Scala,
Oh no. Okay.
and that's because you know my jobs have required Java.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Okay.
you know, I pretty much stayed out of the core development of our chain.
Yeah.
I really want to prototype applications
Right.
rather than work on core. I don't really want to get that heavily into the math, even though
Yeah. Right.
strong background in math. I don't have the patience for it. Takes too much headspace. Other things I want to do.
Right. It can be all consuming when you get down into the weeds.
And
No.
when you know the results, you know, going through the work of actually saying, yeah, the proof is valid, you just
Mhm.
accept the results. You don't have to
Yeah. Yeah.
actually do it. But the you know, Greg is pretty hung up on you know the process model of computation is where you have to begin. And ultimately, he's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But we're dealing with a real world situation here where we're pretty much agnostic to the back end.
Yeah, well, I was speaking to that point, I was listening to the community, I think it was the last community debriefing where he talks about Casper Lab, and I think even Pyrofex, but certainly Casper Labs, they're using the WebAssembly as their back end. And his point is when you break it down to the smaller pieces, WebAssembly, it's serial. You're not going to be able to do the parallelism. You're not going to be able to scale it. So he seemed pretty adamant about that.
Yeah. I think he's a little extremist when he says you can't scale it. It won't scale as much. Okay? When you have a pure process calculus environment, every communication is autonomous. There's no controlling influences anywhere.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Greg's not going to settle for less than that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it won't be useful to use WebAssembly. And in fact, I am highly in favor of a WebAssembly version of Golang written in Rust.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And running on WebAssembly. So we can use their consensus mechanism. I mean, it's their open source. But ultimately, Greg is right. We have to
right.
Sure. Process calculus ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but for applications we want to deploy tomorrow, that may not be our cleanest path. Because,
Gotcha.
There's an optimization process that will happen ultimately, but until that process, which is automated, matures.
Yeah.
I think Greg is overly optimistic on the performance. We'll have for quite some time.
Okay.
And then Ed's wallet can talk to a node written in Rust.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sure. Have that flexibility to connect to more nodes.
Yeah, and it also lets us do peer-to-peer transactions off-chain. And I think most of the transactions we'll do in the future will be off-chain.
Right. Well, I think I'm going to sign off for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get on to some other things too. It's been thanks for your feedback and
yeah,
moral support.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I appreciate that. Take care, Jim. See you.
Yep.
See you, Ed. Have a great day. Thank you, Mal, for joining us this morning. Or
Thank you, Mal.
it's morning here in the States, or when it probably a different time where you're at. So have a good day, everyone.
See you.
Bye bye.